I watched my stepbrother become a millionaire overnight using my invention. Standing ovation at Silicon Valley's biggest tech summit, investors throwing money at him. TechCrunch calling him the next Steve Jobs. All for technology he stole from my laptop while I was at our grandmother's funeral. He thought he was so clever. He had no idea what was coming. My name is Darius Chen. I'm 28 years old, and I'm a biomedical engineer specializing in wearable health technology in Austin, Texas. For the past 5 years, I've been developing cutting-edge medical devices that can predict health emergencies before they happen. The irony wasn't lost on me as I watched the live stream from my apartment. I help people detect problems early, but I completely missed the one growing in my own family. My stepbrother Kellen had just presented my invention to the biggest tech conference in the world. Vitasync was my life's work, a revolutionary wearable device that could monitor 47 different biomarkers in real time and predict cardiac events, strokes, and diabetic emergencies up to 6 hours before they occurred. I'd spent 3 years developing the proprietary algorithms and sensor technology in secret. The presentation was flawless. Kellen explained every technical detail perfectly, answered complex questions about the neural network architecture, and even demonstrated the device's predictive capabilities with test data. My test data. He looked confident, polished, and completely believable as he claimed to be the sole inventor of technology that could save millions of lives. The audience was mesmerized. Venture capitalists were already pulling out their phones. I watched the stock ticker at the bottom of the screen. Medical device companies were surging just from the announcement. Kellen had positioned himself to become the next billionaire tech wonderkind, and he'd done it by stealing everything I'd worked for. But Kellen had made one critical mistake. He thought he understood what I'd built, but he had no idea about the real innovation hidden in Vitasync's core architecture. The technology he'd just demonstrated was impressive, but it was only the surface layer of what I'd actually created. My stepbrother was about to learn that you don't steal from someone who thinks 5 steps ahead. What Kellen didn't know was that I'd been paranoid about intellectual property theft since my freshman year at MIT. My roommate had stolen my first patent idea and sold it to a medical device company for $50,000. I swore it would never happen again. Every piece of Vitasync's code contained hidden watermarks, invisible signatures embedded in the algorithm structure that proved I was the original author. More importantly, the version Kellen had stolen was deliberately incomplete. The real breakthrough wasn't in the health monitoring sensors he'd demonstrated. It was in the predictive AI engine that I'd kept on a separate encrypted drive. Kellen's presentation had been impressive, but he'd essentially shown the world a Ferrari without an engine. The device he'd demonstrated could monitor biomarkers. Sure, but it couldn't predict health emergencies with the 94% accuracy rate that made Vitasync revolutionary. That technology existed only in my secure lab at the University of Texas Biomedical Research Center. I pulled up my laptop and checked the hidden tracking software I'd installed on all my development files 2 years ago. The logs showed exactly when Kellen had accessed my computer, November 15, 2024, at 2:47 a.m. 3 days after our grandmother's funeral while I was still grieving, and he was supposedly helping me get back on my feet. The files he'd copied were from my demo version folder, intentionally incomplete prototypes I'd created for investor meetings. He'd taken the bait perfectly. Every timestamp, every file access, every USB transfer was logged and stored in my cloud backup system. But here's what really made me smile. Kellen had just promised 3,000 investors and millions of viewers that Vitasync could predict cardiac events with 94% accuracy. He'd committed to live demonstrations with real patients within 30 days. The only problem? The technology to actually deliver on that promise existed only in my head and my secure servers. My stepbrother had just painted himself into a corner using my own brush. Now I just had to wait for reality to catch up with his lies. Kellen and I had never been close. Even after our parents married when I was 16, he was 2 years older, more charismatic, and had always resented that I got better grades despite his superior social skills. When I got into MIT while he settled for a state school business program, the tension became obvious. After college, I'd focused on my research while Kellen bounced between startup jobs in marketing and business development. He was good at talking, great at networking, but had never actually built anything. Still, family dinners were pleasant enough. He'd ask about my work with genuine seeming interest, and I'd foolishly shared my excitement about Vitasync's potential. The warning signs had been there for months. Last summer, Kellen had suddenly started asking detailed questions about my research timeline. When would I be ready to seek investors? Had I filed patents yet? Who owned the intellectual property, me or the university? I thought he was just being a supportive big brother, maybe looking for ways to help with the business side. In September, he'd offered to help me prepare investor presentations. "You're brilliant at the tech stuff, Darius, but you need someone who speaks business language," he'd said. I'd let him review my pitch decks, even given him copies of my demo videos. He'd provided genuinely helpful feedback about simplifying the technical language. 2 weeks before grandmother's funeral, Kellen had asked to borrow my laptop to help plan the memorial service. He'd needed access to family photos and contact lists. I'd given him my password without hesitation. We were family, and I was too devastated to think clearly. The day after the funeral, he'd called with an opportunity. A friend of his had connections at major tech conferences and could potentially get Vitasync featured at upcoming investor events. All he needed were my latest prototypes and technical specifications to shop around to the right people. I told him I wasn't ready yet. The technology needed more testing, and I wanted to file patents first. He'd seemed disappointed, but understanding. "Just promise me you'll consider it," he'd said. "This could change both our lives." He'd been right about that part. He just hadn't realized how. The morning after Kellen's presentation, I drove to the office of Elena Vasquez, the intellectual property attorney I'd been working with for 2 years. Elena specialized in tech patent disputes and had a reputation for being ruthlessly effective in protecting inventors' rights. "Darius, I saw the news about your stepbrother," she said before I could even sit down. "TechCrunch is calling it the biggest biotech breakthrough of the decade." I placed my laptop on her desk and showed her the tracking logs. "Elena, I need to file an emergency injunction. He stole incomplete prototypes and is claiming credit for technology he can't actually deliver." Her expression shifted from sympathy to sharp professional focus as she reviewed the evidence. The timestamp logs, file access records, and hidden watermarks I'd embedded in the code painted a clear picture of theft. More importantly, the technical analysis showed that Kellen's revolutionary system was missing the core AI engine that made Vitasync actually work. "This is better than most IP theft cases I see," Elena said. "You have digital fingerprints all over this technology, but there's a problem," he presented at a public conference. "If we don't act fast, he could license this to major corporations who might claim good faith purchase rights." Within 2 hours, Elena had filed papers with the federal court for an emergency restraining order against Kellen and any companies attempting to license the technology. She'd also sent cease and desist letters to the 3 venture capital firms that had already reached out to Kellen after his presentation. But I had a better plan than just legal action. That afternoon, I called Dr. Sarah Kim, the research director at Austin Medical Center, where I'd been conducting Vitasync trials. "Sarah, I need a favor. Could we accelerate the patient demonstration we had scheduled for next month?" "How accelerated?" she asked. "This Friday, full media presence. I want to show what Vitasync can actually do." Within 24 hours, I had confirmation for a live demonstration at one of the most prestigious medical centers in the country. Every major tech journalist, 3 venture capital firms, and representatives from 4 Fortune 500 medical device companies would be attending. Kellen had promised investors a revolutionary device. I was about to show them what revolution actually looked like. Thursday morning, my phone started buzzing with calls from venture capitalists who had seen Kellen's presentation. The first call came from Jessica Chen, a partner at Redwood Ventures who managed their $2 billion healthcare portfolio. "Mr. Chen, I understand your stepbrother presented your technology at the Innovation Summit. We're very interested in discussing an investment round." I let her finish her pitch before responding. "Ms. Chen, I think there's been some confusion. Kellen isn't involved in Vitasync development, and he doesn't have authority to represent the technology." The silence on the line was deafening. "I'm sorry, are you saying he doesn't have rights to the technology he presented?" I'm saying he stole it from my laptop and has no ability to deliver what he promised. Within an hour, Elena's office was fielding calls from 3 more VC firms, 2 medical device companies, and a reporter from the Wall Street Journal who was working on a story about questionable claims at tech conferences. But the most interesting call came from someone unexpected. Tyler Morrison, Kellen's college roommate and current business partner in a failed marketing startup. Tyler had seen the news coverage and wanted to meet. "Darius, I need to tell you something about Kellen," Tyler said when we met for coffee that afternoon. "This isn't the first time he's done something like this." Tyler pulled out his phone and showed me emails dating back 6 months. Kellen had been actively researching my work, reaching out to my former MIT classmates asking about my research projects, and even contacting University of Texas administrators trying to understand the patent ownership structure for student inventions. "He's been planning this for a while," Tyler continued. "After your grandmother's funeral, he told me he'd finally found his golden ticket. He said you'd given him access to technology worth millions, and all he had to do was present it properly." The scope of Kellen's deception was broader than I'd realized. This wasn't an impulsive decision. It was a calculated theft that he'd been orchestrating for months. Tyler showed me documents proving that Kellen had already been negotiating with investors before his presentation, promising them exclusive access to revolutionary biotech developed by his team. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. Tyler looked uncomfortable. "Because he asked me to help him find engineers to reverse engineer your technology after his presentation. He figured if he could hire the right people, they could fill in the gaps before anyone noticed." My stepbrother hadn't just stolen my invention. He'd been planning to steal credit for an entire field of research I'd pioneered. The Friday demonstration was going to be more important than I'd realized. Friday morning, 2 hours before my scheduled demonstration at Austin Medical Center, Kellen called me for the first time since his presentation. "Darius, we need to talk." His voice was strained, nothing like the confident presenter I'd watched on stage. "I think there's been a misunderstanding about Vitasync. I was calibrating sensors in the medical center's demonstration room, surrounded by journalists and investors who were setting up for my presentation." "What kind of misunderstanding, Kellen?" "Look, I may have gotten carried away at the conference. The presentation opportunity came up suddenly, and I thought I was helping showcase your work to the right audience." "By claiming you invented it?" "I never said I invented it alone. I said I was part of the development team." I pulled up the livestream recording on my tablet. Quote, "After 3 years of dedicated research, I'm proud to present my breakthrough innovation in predictive health monitoring. Your words, Kellen." The line went quiet except for his heavy breathing. "Darius, 3 venture capital firms are expecting detailed technical specifications by Monday. There's $50 million in potential funding on the table. We can split this 50-50 if you just work with me here." 50-50 for technology you stole? I took some files, yes, but I also made connections you never could have made. Do you know how hard it is to get presentation time at the Innovation Summit? I leverage relationships you don't have. I almost laughed. "Kellen, do you know what I'm doing right now?" "What?" "I'm preparing to demonstrate real Vitasync technology to actual medical professionals and investors. In 2 hours, they're going to see what the device can actually do, not the incomplete prototype you stole." Another long silence. "What do you mean, incomplete?" "I mean the version you presented can monitor biomarkers, but it can't predict health emergencies. You promised 94% accuracy in cardiac event prediction. Can your stolen technology deliver that?" "Of course it can. I have all your files." "No, Kellen, you have my demo files. The real predictive engine was never on that laptop." I could hear him frantically typing in the background. "This is impossible. The algorithms you showed me were deliberately simplified for investor presentations. Did you really think I'd keep my life's work unprotected on a laptop I let family members borrow?" The typing stopped. "Darius, please. We're family. We can figure this out together." "We were family." You ended that when you decided to steal from me at grandmother's funeral. Austin Medical Center's main conference room was packed with 40 of the most influential people in medical technology. Dr. Sarah Kim had arranged for 3 volunteer patients with different cardiac conditions. all monitored by both Vitasync and traditional hospital equipment. As I connected the Vitasync devices, I could see the skepticism on several faces. After Kellen's presentation, everyone expected flashy marketing and bold claims. Instead, they were getting quiet medical professionalism and real patients with real conditions. Vitasync's revolutionary capability isn't in its sensors, I began. Any engineering team can build devices that monitor heart rate, blood pressure, and glucose levels. The breakthrough is in predictive analysis, using machine learning to identify patterns that indicate health emergencies before traditional symptoms appear. I activated the main display, showing real-time biomarker data from all 3 patients. The numbers looked normal by standard medical criteria, but Vitasync's AI engine was analyzing dozens of subtle correlations invisible to human observation. Patient B appears completely stable by conventional monitoring, I continued. Normal heart rate, blood pressure within acceptable range, no reported symptoms. But Vitasync's algorithm has identified a 73% probability of cardiac event within the next 4 hours. Dr. Kim stepped forward to explain the patient's medical history. This patient experienced a heart attack 6 months ago under similar biomarker conditions. Traditional monitoring didn't detect warning signs until it was almost too late. The real magic happened when Vitasync's predictions aligned perfectly with detailed medical analysis. The AI engine identified subtle patterns in heart rate variability, micro-changes in blood chemistry, and breathing irregularities that predicted emergencies with stunning accuracy. Jessica Chen from Redwood Ventures, who had called me the day before, raised her hand. "Mr. Chen, this is impressive, but how do we know this isn't the same technology your stepbrother demonstrated?" I smiled and pulled up a side-by-side comparison. What Kellen showed you was Vitasync's monitoring interface, essentially a sophisticated fitness tracker. What you're seeing now is the predictive AI engine that makes accurate forecasting possible. The demonstration continued for 2 hours. Vitasync correctly predicted blood sugar fluctuations, identified early signs of cardiac stress, and even detected irregular sleep patterns that correlated with cognitive decline. Every prediction was verified by independent medical equipment and expert analysis. By the end, 3 venture capital firms had requested immediate meetings, 2 medical device companies were discussing acquisition offers, and the Wall Street Journal reporter was updating her story about breakthrough biotech innovation. More importantly, I'd proven that real technology speaks louder than stolen presentations. Monday morning brought the legal reckoning Kellen had been trying to avoid. Elena had compiled a devastating case file documenting every aspect of the theft, and federal prosecutors were interested in the broader implications of IP fraud at major tech conferences. The hearing for our emergency injunction was scheduled for 2 p.m., but Kellen's attorney David Webb called Elena at 10 a.m. requesting a settlement conference. "They want to negotiate," Elena told me with her characteristic sharp tone. "Kellen is facing potential federal charges for intellectual property theft, wire fraud, and securities violations. The investors he misled are furious, and the Innovation Summit organizers are considering legal action for damaging their reputation." We met in a conference room at the federal courthouse. Kellen looked terrible. His confident presentation demeanor had been replaced by barely controlled panic. His attorney was clearly dealing with a client who had painted himself into an impossible corner. "My client acknowledges there was confusion about the technology ownership," Webb began carefully. "He's prepared to issue public corrections and transfer any business opportunities to Mr. Chen." "Confusion?" Elena's voice cut through the room like ice. "Your client stole proprietary technology and committed fraud in front of 3,000 investors." Webb pulled out a folder of documents. "Mr. Morrison has provided evidence that my client was planning this deception for months. There are emails discussing strategies to reverse engineer technology he couldn't actually access. This goes beyond simple misunderstanding." Kellen finally spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "Darius, I know I messed up. I thought I could figure out the missing pieces before anyone noticed. I never meant for it to go this far." I looked at my stepbrother, someone I'd grown up with, shared family dinners with, trusted with my life's work. "Kellen, you didn't just steal my technology. You tried to steal my entire future." The settlement terms were harsh but appropriate. Kellen would publicly admit to the theft, surrender all business opportunities generated by his false presentation, pay damages for lost licensing opportunities, and face 2 years of probation for intellectual property fraud. More importantly, the legal proceedings had attracted attention from the FBI's white-collar crime division. They were investigating whether Kellen's actions were part of a broader pattern of IP theft at tech conferences. Justice wasn't just about our family dispute anymore. It was about protecting innovation itself. The public correction came exactly 1 week after Kellen's original presentation. Standing in the same Innovation Summit auditorium where he'd stolen my thunder, he read a prepared statement admitting to the theft and misrepresentation of Vitasync technology. I wrongly claimed credit for breakthrough biomedical technology developed by my stepbrother, Darius Chen. Kellen read to a room full of journalists and industry professionals. I stole proprietary files without permission and misrepresented my role in their development. I apologized to the Innovation Summit, to investors who were misled, and especially to Darius for betraying his trust. The tech industry's response was swift and decisive. TechCrunch published a detailed correction with the headline, "Real Inventor of Revolutionary Health Tech Steps. Forward After Family Member's Deception." The Innovation Summit banned Kellen from future events and implemented new verification procedures for presenter credentials. More satisfying was watching the business opportunities flow to their rightful destination. Redwood Ventures offered me a $25 million Series A funding round. MedTech Solutions proposed a $200 million acquisition deal. The University of Texas agreed to an exclusive licensing arrangement that would fund my research for the next decade. But the real validation came from the medical community. Dr. Kim arranged for Vitasync to be tested at 3 major medical centers, and early results showed even better predictive accuracy than my original trials. We were saving lives, not just making money. Kellen's punishment extended beyond legal consequences. The tech community has a long memory for fraud, and his reputation was permanently damaged. Job applications were rejected, networking connections disappeared, and investor relationships evaporated overnight. Tyler Morrison, who had helped expose Kellen's premeditation, received immunity in exchange for his testimony. He provided crucial evidence that led to federal investigation of IP theft at other tech conferences, ultimately exposing a broader pattern of credential fraud in the startup community. The systematic dismantling of Kellen's lie had revealed something more important than family betrayal. It had exposed vulnerabilities in how the tech industry validates innovation claims. 6 months after the Innovation Summit incident, Vitasync had become one of the most successful medical device launches in recent history. We'd secured FDA approval for clinical use, partnered with 5 major hospital systems, and were saving an average of 200 lives per month through early cardiac event detection. I'd hired a team of 15 engineers and researchers, moved into a state-of-the-art facility in Austin's tech corridor, and was working on next-generation predictive algorithms for stroke and diabetes management. The technology Kellen had tried to steal was generating $50 million in annual revenue and growing rapidly. More importantly, Vitasync had sparked broader innovation in predictive healthcare. Medical device companies were investing billions in AI-driven early warning systems, and universities were launching new research programs focused on preventive medicine technology. The legal precedent from Kellen's case had also strengthened intellectual property protections for individual inventors. Federal prosecutors were now taking IP theft more seriously, and tech conferences had implemented stringent verification procedures for presenter credentials. But the personal cost had been significant. My relationship with that side of the family was permanently damaged. My mother and stepfather struggled to understand how Kellen could have betrayed family trust so completely, and holiday gatherings became tense affairs filled with unspoken tensions. Kellen had found work at a small marketing firm in Phoenix, far from the tech industry that had rejected him. According to Tyler, he was struggling financially and emotionally with the consequences of his choices. Part of me felt sorry for him, but a larger part remembered the calculation behind his betrayal. The tech industry had learned that innovation couldn't be stolen, only recognized and rewarded when it came from legitimate sources. Real breakthroughs required years of dedication, not minutes of file copying. Success, I'd learned, was the best revenge against those who tried to steal your future. 2 years after the Innovation Summit incident, I was reviewing quarterly reports for Vitasync Industries when my assistant knocked on my office door. "Mr. Chen, there's someone here to see you. He says he's family." I looked up to see Kellen standing in my lobby, looking older and more worn than when I'd last seen him in court. He'd lost weight, and his usually perfect appearance had been replaced by the tired look of someone who'd spent 2 years dealing with consequences. "Hello, Darius," he said when I met him in the reception area. "I know you probably don't want to see me, but I needed to come here." I gestured toward my office. "What do you need, Kellen?" He sat across from my desk, looking around at the awards and recognition certificates covering the walls. Vitasync had won innovation prizes from medical associations, tech organizations, and university research centers. The technology he'd tried to steal had become exactly what I'd envisioned. "I wanted to apologize," he said finally. "Not the legal apology I read at the conference, but a real one. What I did to you was unforgivable." "Why now?" I asked. Kellen pulled out his phone and showed me a news article. "My girlfriend's father had a heart attack last month. The doctor said if they'd caught the warning signs 6 hours earlier, he would have survived." I realized what he was showing me. Vitasync technology could have saved someone he cared about. The irony was painful and obvious. "I've spent 2 years thinking about what I took from you," Kellen continued. "Not just the technology or the money, but the trust. I betrayed someone who had always treated me like real family." "Kellen, we both made mistakes in our relationship." "No," he interrupted. "This one was all mine. I was jealous of your success, your intelligence, your ability to create something meaningful. Instead of working to build my own achievements, I tried to steal yours." We sat quietly for several minutes. Finally, Kellen stood up to leave. "Darius, I know you can't forgive me, and I don't expect you to. But I want you to know that seeing what Vitasync has become, the lives it's saving, the innovation it's inspired, I'm genuinely proud of what you've accomplished." After he left, I sat in my office thinking about forgiveness and family. Kellen had destroyed our relationship, but he'd also inadvertently proven the value of my work to the world in ways I never could have achieved alone. Sometimes the greatest betrayals lead to the clearest validation of who we really are. That evening, I called my mother for the first time in months. Our conversations had been strained since Kellen's scandal, filled with careful avoidance of painful topics and unspoken blame. "Mom, Kellen came to see me today," I said. The silence stretched for several seconds. "How did that go?" "Better than I expected. He apologized, a real apology this time. I think he finally understands what he did." My mother's voice was careful. "Does this mean you might be able to forgive him someday?" I thought about the question that had been haunting me for 2 years. Forgiveness wasn't about excusing Kellen's actions or pretending they hadn't happened. It was about releasing the anger that had been eating away at family relationships and my own peace of mind. "I think so," I said finally. "Not because what he did was okay, but because holding on to this anger isn't helping anyone anymore." The next week, I made a decision that surprised everyone, including myself. Vitasync Industries announced a new scholarship program for first-generation college students pursuing biomedical engineering. The fund would be managed by the Chen Foundation for Innovation Ethics, named after my stepbrother as a reminder that real innovation requires integrity, not theft. Kellen called me when he heard about the foundation. "Darius, I don't deserve this." "It's not about what you deserve," I told him. "It's about making sure other young engineers understand that success comes from creating, not stealing." 3 months later, Kellen enrolled in a master's program in business ethics at Arizona State University. He decided to rebuild his career around helping startups navigate intellectual property issues, using his own failure as a cautionary tale for others. The tech industry had moved on from our scandal, but the lessons remained. Innovation summits now required detailed verification of presenter credentials. Universities were teaching more comprehensive courses on IP ethics. The FBI had established a dedicated unit for investigating technology fraud. Most importantly, Vitasync continued saving lives every day. We'd expanded into stroke prediction, diabetes management, and early-stage cancer detection. The technology that Kellen had tried to steal had grown beyond my wildest dreams, not because of his betrayal, but in spite of it. Looking back, I realized that Kellen's theft had forced me to prove the value of my work in ways I might never have attempted otherwise. His betrayal had been devastating, but it had also shown me the strength of my own convictions and the power of real innovation to survive any challenge. In the end, the greatest lesson wasn't about protecting intellectual property or building better security systems. It was about understanding that authentic success, the kind that creates lasting value and saves lives, can never be stolen. It can only be earned through dedication, integrity, and the courage to keep innovating, even when those closest to you try to tear you down. Success, I'd learned, isn't just about what you create. It's about who you